Coming up on Down Under EV Adventures, I interview my brother about his batteries, his solar power, and his Tesla Model Y performance. Welcome back everyone from wherever you're watching. Thanks for joining me, and we've got a great episode today where I interview my brother in Canberra. And so I was in Canberra earlier this year and I had a fabulous time there. If you wanted to check out some of the places I've been, head over to my other channel, Finding G-Spots. I'll put a link in the description and you can have a look at some of the places we visited. But while we were there, of course, we drove around quite a bit in my brother's Tesla Y. And there was a few questions I'd always wanted to ask my brother about his Tesla and also his setup that he's got at home. So yeah, we had a look at his solar system and his batteries and chatted about all sorts of stuff. So battery technology, all sorts of modern technology, EVs, and what the future is regarding some of those things. So we will join my brother firstly as we discuss a little bit about his Tesla Powerwall. Let's get into it. Tell me about the Tesla Powerwall.
Well, we've been 13.5 kilowatts each battery.
Yes.
This was commissioned in March 2022. This was commissioned last month.
And why did you get a second one? Why did you not just keep one?
Because if I ever wanted to upgrade the power later, right, the Powerwall 3 is not compatible with the Powerwall 2 at the moment, so you can't add extra onto the Powerwall 2.
Right.
Okay.
How is it linked up to your solar system? Like, tell the viewers how it's all set up and how it's controlled.
There is down here. There's what's called a gateway. This is the brains of the unit. It's called a gateway. The gateway 2.
Right.
And this basically takes, from what I gather, the signal from the inverters and then decides whether it's going to charge the Powerwall, feed the house or whatever it's supposed to do, and then any excess goes. So decide whether you want to discharge the Powerwall or just do excess solar.
And I know you probably don't do it that often, but there's people out there who say, oh no, solar's pretty stupid because it's only during the day and, you know, you can't charge your car at night or you can't, you know, because the sun doesn't...
You can charge the car at night with the Powerwall.
Yeah, so you can actually do it.
Yeah, you can actually charge at night.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I try to tell people, and people are saying, oh no, you can't do that because the sun doesn't shine at night. Well, no, if you've got batteries, you can store the energy.
The battery where you want
and that will be the. Do you think that will be the future of a lot of people doing independent power? They'll have their own little power stations.
Yeah. Well, that's the power station on the roof.
Yep.
And that's the storage.
Yep.
It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, I think.
Yep. Okay, next up we have another look at the Powerwall and the inverter that's connected to it and explains a little bit about that. And Mark, this is the inverter, correct?
Yep, that's the up to 7 kilowatts it can take, although I've only got 5.4 kilowatts of panels hooked up to it.
Okay.
And this is my other inverter, the first inverter I got, which is a 5 kilowatt inverter, and it takes about just over 5 kilowatts.
So what is your kilowatt system now? Like how much you've got on the roof?
10.4.
Okay, so you've got over 10 kilowatts on the roof, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a great setup. And I mean, even if you're putting out a lot of money initially for it, this is going to last a long time. I mean, how long would these batteries last?
Oh, you'll get at least 10 years. I mean, the warranty's 10 years on both of them.
And most likely they'll be like
probably get 50
other batteries. You'll get more out of it, and the technology is definitely going to get better. They're going to get more dense. Okay.
Yeah. The new one is LFP. Don't forget, the Powerwall 3 is LFP.
Right.
Yeah, these are NMC.
Okay.
2670 NMCs, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So LFP is going to be the new technology.
Yeah.
And what would you?
They're water cooled as well and fan cooled. So I've got a radiator and a fan in.
The new ones or these ones?
No, these ones.
Oh, these ones.
Yeah,
okay. There's good thermal management, just like in a car.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's good to know.
Well, I guess what they learned in the car, they've learned for this technology as well.
How easy is it to how long does it take?
It took a couple of hours. Well, it took probably more than 2 hours. Probably about 3 hours to install the batteries.
Yep.
You can do it in the morning. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty heavy. These are about 110 kilos, 120 kilos or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you need a couple of big, strong guys.
Yep. Okay.
Install them.
All right. Good stuff.
We used ECG Electrical, and they did a good job. So we're very happy with it.
All right. There you go. There's a plug if you live in the Canberra area. There could be an electrician that might be able to help you if you wanted to go down this route and install a Tesla battery. What about other Powerwalls? I mean, what's your feeling with other companies, other Powerwalls? Is it something you'd consider for the future, or you'd recommend to other people, or you just a Tesla through and through?
I just think the product integrates well with the app.
Yep.
So, you've got the little diagram on your phone that shows the discharge of the battery,
Mm-hmm.
the charging of the battery.
Yep.
It's got your solar panels on the roof, and it can show you charging your car, so you know where the energy's flowing. To me, that's a benefit. I don't know how other batteries would integrate with the Tesla app. Yeah, it all integrates nicely. It's really
Okay, and obviously that is a strength of Tesla. I mean, even me as a non-owner, I have rented and I've driven Teslas, and there's no doubt the software and that sort of support is generally very good. I've been very impressed with it as a non-Tesla driver, and I would consider buying a Tesla just for that. I think unfortunately BYD, they need to do a lot of catching up with that, but that's another story for another day. So obviously, this is the same company, so you'd think that the support would be pretty good if you did have any issues.
Fellas, I've had very few issues. Everything's been, hunky-dory.
Perfect. So these interviews were filmed over a couple of days on my trip over there. And anyway, we did a trip to the Honeysuckle Creek tracking station, which is in this national park. And I can highly recommend this place if you're ever in the Canberra area and you've got any interest in the Apollo moon landings or, space in general. I think you'd really enjoy this place. It's obviously there was a tracking station there, which was used during the Apollo moon landing. It's all been dismantled now, but they've left quite a lot of stuff there, and there's quite a lot of exhibits and places you can go and have a look. So this was our venue. After we had a wander around here, we went and sat in the car and I interviewed my brother. I'm at the Honeysuckle campground. I'm here with my brother Mark, because Mark lives in Canberra, and as you may know if you've watched the channel before, that my brother does have a Tesla. I mentioned it a few times. And anyway, welcome to the channel, Mark. We talk all the time about EVs, about new technology, about alternate energy, but I've never asked you a few questions. I'm really interested to know what brought you to buying an EV in the first place. Like, tell us about it. This car that you've got at the moment is not your first EV.
No, it's not.
What did you buy before that, and what led you to buying one?
Well, many years ago when Tesla released the Model S, I thought that's a pretty cool car. Never having to go to a service station to fill your car up, so I thought that was pretty good. A few years later, they released the Model 3, and I thought, well, yeah, that's nice. It's a slightly smaller version. It's a lot more affordable. And I waited for a couple of price drops on the Model 3, and I didn't really consider any other cars at the time because there was really only the Nissan Leaf that was sort of on the radar at that stage.
Okay, so there wasn't any Kias, there wasn't any...
No, I think there might have been our Hyundai Ioniq.
Yes.
You know, the really one with a small battery. And I thought, well, yeah, I was sort of looking at that too. I thought, yeah, that wouldn't be bad to get started with. But then they had yet another price drop on the Tesla, and I thought, oh, okay. And then I saw that there was a long range available. And I thought, long range, yeah, we're going to get a good range of that. So basically traded in the old Subi and
got your first EV.
Got my first EV.
And how hard was it back then? Like, obviously, when was this? How many years ago was this now that you bought your first?
Oh, that was just over 3 years ago now.
So around about 3 years ago.
So it's 2021.
Was it a little bit daunting to get into an EV at that stage?
Well, no, because we actually hired an EV. I wanted to sort of test drive one, but there was no test drives available in Canberra at the time. So there was no showroom even. So I just seen the odd one around the place.
Obviously they were much less popular than they are now. You see them everywhere now.
Yeah, there wasn't many on the road. There was quite a unique thing to see a Tesla on the roads. The other thing was they shifted the production from America, from Fremont in America to Shanghai in China. And then all the reports were that there was a better build quality.
Yes, okay.
From the Shanghai
ones. What some of those earlier Teslas did have some dubious panels and stuff on them.
So price drops and
better quality.
Better quality, and I thought, well, why not?
Yeah.
Of course after that I never looked back. And my friend Greg, he wanted to get into EVs, and I thought, I really wanted to get a Model Y because it was more spacious cabin.
Now we're actually sitting in. You can probably guess we are in a Tesla if you don't already know that. And this is a Model Y, and it's the performance model. Yeah. Which is a very nice car. I can tell you, we've been driving this for the last few days, and it is an amazing car. And I'll say a Tesla joke now. So why the Y?
Why the why?
Sorry about that, guys.
Well, I've already told you why the why.
Yeah.
Because
So
more spacious. I wanted all-wheel drive, and the price difference between a long range and a performance wasn't a huge amount. I actually test drove the long. I've actually hired a standard rear-wheel drive Y, which I quite liked.
Yes, I've driven the rear-wheel drive as well.
But
which are still a great car.
Yeah, they're a lovely car, but I just wanted that extra oomph from the all-wheel drive, because it's being a dual motor, you get a bit more performance. You get the bigger battery, you get the 75 kilowatt hour battery as opposed to the 60 in the rear-wheel drive. And then the performance uses the same battery, but it comes with a few nicer things like the bigger wheels. I actually like the Uber turbines, the big 21-inch wheels.
Now, at this point of the video, I will show everyone some footage of the outside of the car so you can see what it looks like. So if you saw my video from a few weeks ago, my wife and I test drove the Y long range, and this one's obviously the same shape and size as that. Just a few minor differences, the tyres and wheels are different. And you've got this beautiful red calipers there for the brakes. And another noticeable difference is the ground clearance is slightly lower. So on the performance it's 157 millimeters as opposed to 167 millimeters for the other variants. And you can have a look and you can see there's not much to distinguish it from the normal model. It's really just the wheels, the red calipers. And of course, it's got the dual motor.
The metal pedals.
Yeah, you've got metal pedals. You get metal pedals. Well, you can see there.
The interior is pretty much the same.
Yes, and
apart from that,
one thing that I noticed when I first got into a Y is just the space is amazing. So obviously, when I show the review proper, I will show you all the space, but. It's very comfortable to sit, isn't it, Mark? There's plenty of room. And
I love driving into Queensland. It was fantastic.
Likes and dislikes. I mean, as we all know, there's no car that's perfect. I mean, whenever we talk about cars and new cars coming out, we always talk about what is good, what is bad. And also, I should point out, EVs and this sort of stuff, it's not the only thing we talk about. We also talk about, like who's the better guitarist, Mark Knopfler or David Gilmour. I mean, Mark Knopfler, obviously.
Okay.
And we also talk about, what's the better alien movie, Alien or Aliens? And I mean, everyone knows that Aliens is clearly the better movie.
Well, we'll have to watch it in a couple of days' time to find out.
But we'll talk about in this model in particular, we'll talk about. It's not a perfect car, so what don't you like about it?
I don't like the fact that with the bigger wheels, you do get slightly reduced range. So obviously if I was to go to the 19-inch Gemini wheels or whatever they're called these days, you would get an improvement in range. So yeah, that's about a little bit. It would be nice to have a bit more range sometimes. The auto wipers are a bit of a disaster. Sometimes they just won't come on.
And you mentioned it doesn't have a rear wiper.
It doesn't have a rear wiper. Yeah, that is a downside. But then again, it's only got a pillar box rear view anyway. So the vision out the back is very poor, but the cameras are very good.
Right.
So, and when hardware 4 cameras come in, it'll be better again.
Okay. What else don't you like? The other day we were talking and you mentioned some of the safety features or the fact that they rely on cameras.
They've got a thing called Tesla Vision now. They've done away with the radar or the LiDAR or whatever it is on the front of the vehicle to help with the cruise control, because apparently you were getting conflicts between what the cameras were saying and what the radar was saying.
So this is something which people have mentioned on forums as well. So
Okay.
Yeah,
definitely.
So that's something to keep in mind if you were looking at this particular model. That there are things that people don't like, and obviously there's people who like me who prefer to have a binnacle or a proper dashboard on a car, and not everyone likes the center screen.
But you get used to that.
But that's right.
They've actually increased the size of the speedo, so it's a lot better now. I'm pretty happy with the car.
Right, and
No spare tyre.
Okay, well, yeah,
I've had to buy a spare tyre, but most EVs don't come with a spare tyre.
Well, most new cars don't even have it.
Yeah.
The petrol cars. So yeah. All right. Well, what about the things that you do really love about it? Like, what would you say that Tesla has as an advantage over, say, BYD or Hyundai or Kia?
Well, I think the supercharging network is obviously a big draw card still. Although that if they get funding from the governments, local governments, then they actually open it up to other vehicles. up to non-Tesla vehicles.
Yeah.
I love the simplicity. I love the clean cabin. I'm really used to lack of switches and everything now. I think Tesla does it very well. The software is very good. The fact that you can do remote cooling, remote heating, all that sort of stuff.
And obviously with this particular model being the performance model, it's amazing.
Oh yeah,
amazing performance.
Performance is more than you need, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, and the grip is just unbelievable. You know, very, very good grip from
So to all the viewers out there, we did do some 0 to 100 tests yesterday. We had quite a lot of, I won't say whiplash, but quite a lot of sore necks doing a few 0 to 100s. And
it's quite brutal,
I can say, compared to the Polestar, it's on a similar level to the Polestar. Obviously, it's a little bit faster in this model and probably a bit more comfortable than the Polestar to do those sorts of tests.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll show you some of that later on in this video, and I'll probably do a separate video about that. You know, how much does it cost you to run? You know, do you have to pay for charging, or do you do most of it free?
Oh, I do most of it from my solar.
Right.
Very little. I draw very little power from the grid these days, seeing as I've got the 2 Powerwalls, plus I've got.
So you'd probably do 80-90% at least.
Yeah, probably. It's only really when I go on long trips that I do, you know, AC charging at the property or DC fast chargers.
Okay, so like me, you do a fair chunk.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about things like subsidies for new cars, or you know, to discourage people from buying conventional vehicles? Could the government do something along those lines? Do you think that would help?
I don't think subsidies are the answer, to be honest. I'd rather they put the money into infrastructure.
Right.
You know, and then
so
of course,
just to make it really appealing to people.
Make it more appealing, and people stop whinging about, can't get to such and such a place because there's no fast chargers there. I think Australia's a bit behind in some areas.
Okay.
Definitely, maybe 5-10 years behind with infrastructure. Maybe that's being a bit harsh. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think definitely that. I mean, I personally think subsidies are not a bad idea. It has to be a mixture of stick and carrot to get people to change and to switch over. But you know, Australia, as you know, we've also talked about this many times over the years. You've had solar now for how many years?
10 years.
10 years. I've had it for nearly 5. So, and solar's another thing where there's so many houses. There's something like 2 million houses in Australia, I think now, which have solar power. There would be so many people out there watching this who don't have an EV yet, and yet they've got this power station on the roof, which is essentially a fuel station.
It's a power station, and don't forget your if you get a battery, a Powerwall or equivalent, you've got storage. Okay, so which means then you can discharge that. That's probably for another topic.
Yes. But what about people, Mark, who may have a solar system, but they work and they're not able to charge their car in the middle of the day? Would you say it's worth them investing in a battery, or do you think it's still better off in the long run if they have to charge, you know, granny charging or using?
Maybe they're better off picking an EV power plan that will, you know, give them generous tariffs. Like they're really cheap tariffs. I'm talking like, you know, for example, again, Greg gets power for 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Why would you charge a car? For that sort of money. All right. It's dirt cheap.
So there's a lot of people, if you go onto forums or even just Facebook groups, and they mention that when cars actually, you know, reach the end of their life, they'll still have a very good portion of, you know, even if they have 70% of the battery available, and that potentially it might be 60-70 kilowatt battery.
You're talking about repurposing?
I'm talking about perhaps repurposing that and using it for a house.
For house storage.
That's a lot of energy there. Could that be an industry which might spring up? I mean, I'm personally think it will be.
No doubt. It's going to come. I think there'll be very little. You know that when you have crashed Teslas and the battery's in good condition, a lot of the places will say, they'll snap that up and say, yeah, we'll take the motor and the battery, because they know how valuable those products are. And that's...
I mean, in some ways they're cheaper than a Powerwall, aren't they?
Oh yeah, of course.
For the amount of kilowatts you get for the price you pay. I mean,
they're in very high demand. Yes. So, you know, the very few of them will get scrapped and recycled. It'll be more about repurposing.
Yes.
Maybe for a project car, for an older car, say that it used to have an ICE engine in.
And you want to, you know...
Sorry, not an ICE engine, an ICE.
Yeah, an ICE,
internal combustion engine. And people will say, oh yeah, we'll put a Tesla motor in that.
haven't talked about it much, and I haven't mentioned it on my channel, but that's something I'm going to predict. I would say within 5 to 10 years, there will be companies springing up, even perhaps in Australia, which will be repurposing these batteries, and people will then be able to use it in their house, or like you said, they will use it as a project to put into an older car.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just give you a quick look at the interior here. So in a word, it is a very, very comfortable car, and as I mentioned, I did review recently the Model Y long range, so the interior is pretty much exactly the same as that. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the car here and the review of it, because you saw my review of the long range, and if not, we'll go back and have a look at that. So yep, excellent comfort in the car, and like I said, being the performance model, gee, it had some fantastic performance. Of course, it's in the name. Alright, so this is the boot there, you can see, and of course it's got a frunk as well, fairly decent sized frunk, which you saw in my long range review as well. So not a lot I can add, but if you want a car with blistering performance, and you don't want to get the Polestar, well, this performance white might be another choice. Now I'm just showing you some footage here. We did a little bit of sort of semi off-road stuff, and we went to this great solar farm, which is about 20 k's from, I can't remember the name of what it's called, but hopefully I'm going to call my brother before this video is put out, and I'll put the name on the screen. But anyway, just wanted to say a little bit about the off-road performance. Now, with such a low ground clearance on it, even lower than the normal Y, you're never going to get fantastic off-road performance from this car. However, you might still want to go down the odd dirt track like we did here. And a lot of people, when it first came out with the 21-inch wheels, they were saying that, they thought the ride would not be very good and it would be very bumpy. Well, one thing I can say is actually it was very smooth going across those dirt roads. We went on some, dirt roads and some bumpy roads. The same when we went out to this place here, the Apollo moon landing place, the tracking station. And yeah, I have to say I was very impressed actually by the off-road performance. But I use that term loosely. I just mean on rough surfaces and bumpy surfaces and perhaps dirt. It was certainly a lot better than I expected. So that's something for you to keep in mind if you are going to do the odd trip and going down dirt roads or bumpy roads. You might be surprised at how well it performed with the 21-inch wheels. So anyway, we had a great time out here at this tracking station. Just showing you a little bit of footage here. Now the other thing I wanted to show you coming up next is the 0 to 100. So our little amateur test, we had fun there doing those tests. And we got pretty close to that time, the claimed time of 3.7 seconds. Now we're going to have a look back in the shed at Mark's battery garden equipment to show you that you can really go petrol free. This is a selection of gardening equipment. I mean, I have some of this equipment at home, and I do a lot of gardening with non-petrol equipment. So basically all of mine is battery operated. So you can see still offer a great range. And pretty much everything you want to do you can use. So you can see here, these are some of the batteries. You might have seen that in a previous episode when I went out bush. You can see I charged some of this for a whippersnipper that I've got. You don't need to use petrol equipment, and I can tell you, once you've gone to battery equipment, it's lighter and it starts every time, and you can leave it for months and you'll have no issue starting with it because it's electric. The batteries will last a long time, even if they are more expensive. And I can tell you, they're not really, sometimes they're even cheaper than buying petrol equipment. Sometimes they're a little bit more expensive, but they're worth it. And I believe he also has a lawnmower. I haven't done an episode on my garden equipment, but I will show my mower as well. I've got one similar to this. I think my one's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, this is a 460.
Yep.
Yours
so
is what, a 510?
I think I've got the 510, yep.
I was going to add that this battery, 7 years old now.
So there you go. This battery in particular is 7 years old, and I can confirm I've got batteries which are 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 7 years old and it's still fine.
And it's still fine.
Yeah.
So, how long would that battery last, Mark? I know how long mine lasts, but how long do yours
30
last?
to 40 minutes.
Yep.
Of continuous use.
So it would be probably enough to easily do your own lawn. And if not, well, you can swap it out with a spare in 2 seconds, basically.
Got a spare over there.
You've got a spare over there, you can just swap it out.
The AK
Yeah.
30, which is the most powerful AK battery they make.
Yeah, so there you go. That's just a quick look at some of Mark's setup that he's got here. So as I'm making this video, I thought I'd just pop out and quickly show you some of my equipment. And these are some of the batteries that I've had. These are about 4 years old, these ones here. And I've got some, like these 200 batteries, which are 5 and 6 years old. And still getting just about the same performance with them. So that's some of my equipment. I've also got a couple of lawnmowers which I'll show you. So I bought these during the pandemic, back at when the pandemic started in 2020. So I've had them, yeah, over 4 years now, and they're great mowers. This in particular is the 510. It's self-propelled. So again, it's got 2 slots there, one for the battery and a spare. And yeah, you'll easily be able to mow most lawns with it. And then of course in my shed I've got my chargers here, which I did demonstrate this when I did the V2L when I went out bush, and you could see me using the car to charge them. And of course I've got the Ryobi 18 volt charger there for the cordless range. So a lot of people in Australia have a cordless drill now, and you'd never go back to a drill that you had to plug in. And just a couple of other things I've got there, a pole hedger, and I've got a spare whippersnipper there as well. And once you go to battery equipment, well, you never really need to use petrol again in most domestic situations anyway. It's only really if you do sort of hardcore garden stuff commercially, perhaps you need petrol stuff with the extra grunt. Anyway, we'll head back to the interview with my brother to finish off. Alright, so Mark, thank you very much for joining everyone on the channel today. I really appreciate your time. And who is the better guitarist? Come on.
Gotta be David Gilmour.
Mark Knopfler.
No.
Alright, thanks Mark. And hey, thanks for sticking with me out there, you guys. You've been absolutely wonderful. It's been a very long episode. Let me know who you think's the best guitarist. I like many guitarists. And what's the best alien movie? You can let me know. It's got to be Aliens, isn't it? Alright, take care everyone, and we'll see you very soon with more great stuff on Down Under EV Adventures. Bye for now.